starting from the Nigerian pilot. Fear grips Abuja. That's the headline there. As kidnappers in guerrilla tactics run rampage in nation's capital city, Buhari, Kwali, Kuje, Peggy, Mpape, Kubwa, Tungamaje, Ushafa, Dede areas under siege. Abductors of 6 sisters jack up ransom from 100 to 700 million naira. Police seem helpless as PCC calls for state of emergency. That's a huge one this morning on the front page of the Nigerian pilot. And you can catch it on page 8 if you want to read the full story.
Now, leadership is sailing through with president, governors, lawmakers pay tributes to fallen heroes, but kidnapping crisis is still leading front page. FCT residents blame security agencies. Kidnappers kill 3 more victims, raise ransom to 700 million naira. 5 sisters yet to regain freedom. Rescue victims, Remi Tinubu tells police. Retired Army General chides leaders, and that's what you find front page. Above that, you also see the Supreme Court, Nasarawa, APC, PDP signed peace deal.
Now to the Daily Champion, talking about the economy, and on a day when the World Economic Forum is opening its 2nd day in Davos, Switzerland. Nigeria inflation rate hits 27-year high of 28.9% in December, says the National Bureau of Statistics. Experts laud federal government's over 40% shareholding transfer to Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Nigeria going to rise again under Tinubu, says Governor Abiodun. All of that on page 6 of the newspaper.
Nigerian News Direct, again, Nigeria's inflation rises in 12th consecutive month as headline inflation hits 28.92%. Steers predicts 31.85% annual inflation, recommends dollar illiquidity to tackle inflation. Abuja kidnap, abductors raise ransom, kill 3 hostages.
New Telegraph. Nigerian Legion. Nation needs more soldiers to combat insecurity. The talk is still about the issue of insecurity. And that story runs from pages 2, 5, 26 on to page 28 of the newspaper. The paper is also saying that government shouldn't be wary of fending for serving. That's quoting the Nigerian Legion now. Government shouldn't be wary of fending for serving retired soldiers, as Tinubu others honor fallen heroes at the National Arcade. Governors Akpabio, Lawan, others celebrate the armed forces. Army chief urges troops to redouble efforts to secure nation. All of that also in the New Telegraph.
The blueprint is still looking at the kidnap case here. It says Al-Qadiyya girls, others, Abuja kidnappers, jack ransom to 700 million naira. We cannot properly briefed on residents' nightmare, and that's PCC. 36 women abducted, 3 killed in Zamfara community, and that's on page 6. Bottom page, you still see that story on Armed Forces Day. Akpabio Lawan, governor seek better welfare for living heroes, amongst other stories.
To the Nigerian Tribune now, you see the picture story of the president laying a wreath at the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day at the National Arcade in Abuja. And of course, going further down the major headline there, Adelabu unfolds roadmap for power sector, says federal government spent 700 billion naira on electricity subsidy in 2023. Oh, that's huge. State governments to get power of attorney in DISCO's operation, estimated billing to end this year. Ibadan to get 330 kVA transmission substation, and of course, you're also getting a 132 kVA substation for upgrade.
The Guardian is looking at oil production this time. It says 2024 oil production. Federal government strained to meet 650 million barrels target over crude-backed loans, and that's on page 6. And so you see that graphic story there, Nigeria's oil output lowest in decades, and then you see all the stories there. NNPCL shops for net worth investors to manage Port Harcourt refinery on page 3 with 35,000 naira minimum wage remains still new minimum wage, NLC declares, and that's on page 4 of the front page of The Guardian. Other stories are there as well, and incessant kidnappings in Settle Abuja residents, and that's the one coming to you from front page of the Guardian. But let's begin with Nigerian pilot this morning. Largely, I mean, I'm sure this is not coming as a surprise story because you've been hearing those stories and people that perhaps we may not know, but are also experiencing this sort of, tragedy. So how do you look at this?
One thing that is clear is that the current administration may not have a clear roadmap or a way out of this heightened security that Nigeria is confronted with currently. And it is sad because it is still the same routine of condemnation, calling for the arrest of the perpetrators.
Being on top of the situation.
And that's all, and don't go to sleep. And on the day that such a tragedy happened so close to the seat of power, or at a time it happened so close to the seat of power, we saw a jamboree taking place in Imo yesterday. I was wondering, what was so special about the inauguration of a governor? That the president was in attendance, the Senate president was there, colleague governors were there. I'm like, is it not supposed to be a task or a responsibility that is being thrust on somebody for another 4 years? Something that's supposed to inconvenience him. What was the jamboree about that the festivity that happened in your state yesterday was such that you begin to wonder, is it that these people take leadership position as a privilege to just live the good life? Otherwise, why are we seeing so much ceremony about the inauguration of a governor for a second term? At a time where we're having this heightened security and a family, our families, grieving. If you observe, kidnapping and whatever you want to call it, banditry or terrorism, has taken another dimension. Unlike before, they kidnap people, yes, they keep them somewhere until you're able to raise a ransom at your convenience, and then you go and pay, and then you take back your loved ones. Now they are killing people.
There's a desperation.
It's like they are giving you an ultimatum. If you don't meet it, they kill one person. And I can assure you, the family of the publicized family is not the only victim. There are families that have suffered the same fate as that family. Many more in that axis, and it is getting worse. And the government clearly lacks not even an imagination on how to solve this problem. There was a news headline I saw here this morning where somebody was calling for more troop numbers to confront insecurity.
In the Nigerian Legion.
This brings me back to the issue I've always canvassed. If the government of Nigeria cannot prevent bad guys from possessing arms to terrorize, kidnap, and destroy lives and properties of law-abiding citizens, please stop this folly of preventing people from having the capabilities of self-defense through legal possession of arms. That is where we are now. The Chief of Army Staff cannot continue this grandstanding of saying that it will lead to anarchy and that the security forces can confront the situation. No, you cannot. You are overwhelmed. And we cannot continue to expose the lives of Nigerians to danger because of the inability of the state to contain the activities of non-state actors that are heavily armed. Is it not a shame that we are not even being briefed properly as to who is responsible for this situation? In other parts of the world, when criminal activities happen like this, within 48 hours, the media will give you the complete story of the perpetrators, their victims, their modus of operandi, and all the details you need to know. And where necessary, they will even profile the groups along other economic, cultural, ethnic, or religious lines for better understanding so that we begin to know what we are confronted with. It's only in Nigeria that people come into a community and commit such levels of criminality or even terrorism. And nobody is telling us who is responsible at all. What they don't tell us is unknown government. And to add to this situation, our FCT minister appears to be embroiled in the political war in his home state of Rivers. To the extent that he's not even, probably not even aware, and the PCC member from Abuja, from the FCT, he said he's not properly briefed about the security situation in the FCT. And that is why we keep telling the president that you cannot run a government like this. You cannot appoint people into government positions based on patronage. And they're not able to deliver. This is the situation we are confronted with today. And so if you cannot protect citizens, allow people to bear arms. Again, we can start with the structured way of doing this. Constitute residents of these communities into vigilante groups. You can create a volunteer unit in the Civil Defense Corps. The word civil defense tells you what the original purpose of that security outfit was supposed to be for, the defense of the civil populace. Create a volunteer unit in the civil defense, and get volunteers. They're probably drawn from even the members of the Nigerian, of what they call the Nigerian Legion, or ex-servicemen generally, that have experience already. Let them constitute the core of this group. The only difference is that they'll be paid by state governments and other, public spirited Nigerians who want to just donate to the pool. But they will be allowed to carry the right caliber of arms to confront these terrorists and these devils that are making life miserable for us. The more we waste time in this regard, the more lives are lost. That girl that was killed, nothing will bring her back to life. Because the state cannot protect her, couldn't protect her family, and they're not allowed to protect themselves. So it is double jeopardy for the Nigerian people. And the government must act now.
The Nigerian police, I mean, I hear you, and sometimes I'm often asked because, I had the opportunity to speak with one of the leading personnel there. And one of the things that she said was the fact that these things happen in other states and they happen beyond their imagination. But it is happening in FCT and we're blowing it out of proportion and it's being exaggerated. So you see that sort of demeanor, from someone within the police ranking, and you're wondering the kind of seriousness or approach that is being meted to such an issue. And, on the other hand, the person says, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. So do you think that the Nigerian police right now, is able to handle this on its own within the FCT, Dr. Marco?
I have to laugh first. Mojid has laid out, the problem we are confronted with. And from all indication, the police is either overwhelmed or incapable of acting to bring the situation under control. Not just the police, even the Nigerian military. What have they been able to do? At times when we talk about this problem over and over and over again, you begin to sound like a broken record because government doesn't seem to be listening. While the state is burning, they are celebrating. They are drinking wine. They are partying, and they are, how do we put it, clinking champagne, like the incident he drew attention to in Imo State yesterday.
And they have protection.
Yes, and they have full protection. So the citizen is at his own, is left on his own to cater for himself, and that is why there have to be different thinking in dealing with the security situation, not just in Abuja, but in the entire country. Abuja is peculiar because Abuja is the seat of power. And when there is no security in the seat of power,
no place is safe.
No place is safe. In Abuja as it is today, Abuja is under siege. While we are talking about the Sangari estate kidnapping, Blueprint, for instance, reported of another case in Chukunku community yesterday where gunmen stormed a community, kidnapped several people, and killed one person. And at times, as somebody in the media, we underreport the actual security situation in Abuja. In Abuja, we have a false sense of security. There's no security in Abuja. And this security situation in Abuja is evidently a spillover from the border towns in Abuja, in the states bordering Abuja. Kaduna, Niger State, Nasarawa State, and of course, Kogi State. And if you look at the terrain in Abuja, it allows for, kidnapping to happen because there are escape routes. There are so many ungoverned territories, within the border, around the borders of the Federal Capital Territory. And again, like Mojid has highlighted, look, we cannot continue like this without the government coming out with something different to handle the situation. The government itself has not been able to think, as we always say, think out of the box, to proffer a different solution. We are not seeing anything. We'll talk about this. Maybe it will be in the news consistently in the next 1 or 2 weeks. And after then, we'll lapse back into pacifism and the entire cycle happens again. I remember in I think it's August 2022, when the presidential guard was attacked in Abuja and about 5 soldiers were killed.
That was on Buhari?
Yeah, in the same Buhari, killed. So that alone tells you the state of insecurity in Abuja. If an elite presidential guard these bandits or kidnappers are bold enough to attack an elite presidential guard and got away with it.
That nearly made the law school postpone
Yeah,
the call to bar
yes,
for that year.
yes.
But I want you to quickly look at this other issue of terrorists attacking a military patrol camp in Katsina, and they destroyed one of their vehicles. That's also a critical issue.
Yes,
If the military patrols are also being attacked, then what does it tell us?
What about lesser mortals like us? It tells us, to me, it tells me that, look, I'm not safe. I'm not safe. And there's a need for Nigeria to deconstruct its security architecture, in the sense that, look, the approach we are using to date is not working. I see no reason. If government, and like Moji said, is double jeopardy, if government cannot protect me, and the same government is not allowing me to bear arm to be able to protect myself. That is where it comes down to. The security services cannot protect themselves. I read that story you are talking about. They were overwhelmed. The normal excuse is that, look, the bandits or gunmen came in large numbers, overwhelmed them. They called for backup. Backup didn't come. They burned down the place, burned down the cars, and they went back into the forest. So if that can happen to a security or a military facilities, what happens to civilian, the civilian populace? If the military cannot protect itself, how do you want me to be able to protect myself when I rely on the military to protect me? And that is why there is a need for us to begin to look at alternative ways of dealing with the situation. And one way of dealing with the situation is to allow citizens, responsible citizens, to be able to bear arms, form a civil defense group to be able to protect themselves from the onslaught of bandits.
So what about the ungoverned spaces? You mentioned it, which is very critical. I mean, the ST minister says, there's a paper that says it hasn't been briefed, properly. And you talked about ungoverned spaces. Those are hideouts.
Those hideouts, for a very long time, I think I was reading a report somewhere that, Nigeria, I think we have a forest guard. A kind of corps that is supposed to take care of our forest area across the country. I was reading a report a long time ago, and they told, and in that report, I heard the total number of forest guards we have in the country is about 3,000. The question is that enough? And I think last week also, Mr. President was talking about forming a new crop of, forest guards? There is need, these ungoverned spaces, there is need for the government to take charge of it. And like we have always said on this platform, look, the state is the only one that is supposed to have the monopoly of coercive power. Where you allow criminals, bandits, unknown government to go and take over an ungoverned space and begin to govern it as it is under terrorize citizens, and from there launch attacks into city. It means government must begin to, think outside the box. And apart from that, I believe, this security situation we are talking about happened, was consistently there in the 8 years of the Buhari administration. What was Buhari able to do in 8 years aside talking? We talked for 8 years, nothing was done. Buhari promised to increase, the personnel of the Nigerian police force by 10,000. I don't think they've even employed till date up to 5,000. We are hearing that they want to employ, but they've not been able to do that. I believe that now we should be able to go beyond talking if government is serious. The wife of the vice president weighed in yesterday over the kidnapping in Abuja. I said wife of the president, sorry, or Remi Tinubu, charging the policemen to deal with the situation. We are waiting for the president to talk, but rather he went to Imo State to go and party. Well, however, beyond the point is beyond talking. Let's see concrete action on the part of government in dealing with the situation. Time for talking is over.
Okay, let's leave security issues for now. We've spent quite a bit talking about it, but let's go the way of governance now, or should I say politics. The Supreme Court is going to rule today, I think, on the Nasarawa State governorship election. And we're hearing that the APC and the PDP have signed a peace deal in Nasarawa State.
Ahead of the ruling.
Ahead of the ruling, yeah. How do you respond to that?
It's a very tense situation in Nasarawa State. And I'm sure the Supreme Court has seen the reactions to their rulings last week. The judgment that came out of the Supreme Court last week has been applauded, even by those who lost at the Supreme Court, because it was seen to be justice. It was seen that justice has been done by all parties, all parties. We expect them to do same going forward in all cases. Nasarawa, in Rivers, any other state that is before them for adjudication. We want to see the Supreme Court take a cue from what has happened last week by its own actions. There was a partial redemption of the image of the judiciary because of the kind of judgment we saw from the courts. We saw the popular reception. We saw that, you know, the legitimacy expressed by the people as far as the judgments were concerned. So it tells you that the judgments were right. They were in order. And they actually called out the appeal court for giving rulings that was tantamount to miscarriage of justice. But I think they shouldn't stop at that level alone. I think the parties, particularly those that are involved in the National Assembly matters in Plateau State, should actually petition the agency. And every judge, any justice of the appeal court that is involved in any of those judgments should be sanctioned appropriately. And I also think that something should be done about this situation by way of remediation. I don't think I call it doctrine of necessity. Maybe the state government of Plateau can actually approach the Supreme Court on the behalf of the litigants, because you can't throw away 11 members of the National Assembly over a clear misjudgment, a clear miscarriage of justice. Very clear. And we said it severally on this program. A lot of our colleagues were talking about it, that look, this basic knowledge of our jurisprudence, electoral jurisprudence, says, look, these are pre-election matters. That if you're not a member of that party, you don't even have the locus to even go into it at all. But the appeal court went ahead stubbornly.
Or under influence.
I mean, you can't even now deny that. And that is why the President of the appeal court has a lot of cases to answer. Plenty people then were alleging that because of, you know, certain interests, ethnic, regional, that either she influenced or she stood by and allowed undue influence to take place and denied the people of Plateau their democratic right of representation. Because the people that are now representing them were not elected by the people of Plateau. And so even she should be put under the spotlight. Why did she sit down and watch this happen? It is her responsibility to actually call these people to order when they were erring. It's her responsibility.
In fact, I mean, page 8 of Nigerian Pilot says, protesting women beg agency to review Ganyam Chiroma's result.
Not just review. Even the conduct of the President of the Court of Appeal should come under review. Because if the judiciary collapses in this country, everything else collapses. The insecurity we're talking about today is a direct effect of corruption in the system, poor governance or absence of it. That is something for the insecurity. So if people today begin to lose faith completely in the judiciary, then the country is as good as gone. It's become a failed state. So the Supreme Court has done well in the previous judgments of the outgone week. We want to see the same thing apply.
But signing a peace deal, is it enough? Because there cannot be peace in the absence of justice.
What we want is justice. And with justice, there will be peace. We've seen justice in Kano, and there was peace in Kano. We saw justice in Plateau, and there was peace in Plateau. We saw justice in other states, and there was peace there. We want to see justice in Nasarawa. We want to see justice in Rivers, another state that are before them today. And all that they owe us is justice, and there will be peace.
All right, Dr. Mao, let's look at economics now. The Bureau of Statistics is telling us that inflation rate has hit a 27-year high in December 2023, 28.9%. And the world outlook, the global outlook for inflation is just there. It will reduce a little according to the global expectation. So how do you respond to, how do you react to all of this? What is the expectation that Nigerians should have if inflation is still this high? 28.9, that's huge.
Yeah, 28.9, highest in 27 years. The last time inflation was this high in Nigeria, I think, was in 1996 from the report. So it shows, it's a reflection of the state of the economy. Two things are said to be responsible. Food inflation, which is a direct consequence of cost. What we're experiencing is cost-pushed inflation, not demand-pull inflation, which is a direct consequence also of one, removal of fuel subsidy. Two, the exchange rate crisis. Naira to $1 as at yesterday was about 1,300. So what do you expect? Food, the cost of transportation, removal of subsidy, like we have said in this platform severally, and floating of the Naira has had a very terrible, what was promised when fuel subsidy was removed and the Naira was floated is not what we are getting, but the reverse is the case. It has had very dire consequences on the economy, and it's the poor masses that are suffering it. I was told yesterday that pure water that I used to buy, I've not bought it for a very long time. I was just asking somebody, I said, how much is this thing? And he told me one sachet of pure water is 30 naira. I was like, what? I will never buy that thing for 30 naira. And he said, okay, you won't drink water. So that is the situation we find ourselves. Then a pack of, many of us who have children in school, will buy Indomie. A pack of Indomie is over 5,000 naira now. That's the cheapest.
Noodles, you mean?
Of Indomie noodles.
Noodles.
Noodles, sorry. Hey, I understand. I'm doing free advert for a company. Noodles is 5,000. I remember then, when in the evening when I'm driving home, and you see their truck, salesmen, they sell. I used to buy it for like 950 naira. Just a few years ago, 3-4 years ago. It's now 5,000. And a tuber of yam is about 2,000 naira for 1 medium-sized tuber of yam. And at times, when you look at the cost of, foodstuff in the market, which is basically responsible for this high inflation rate, you just wonder how are people able to get by.
All right.
It's a terrible situation, and it seems government is helpless in dealing with the situation.
And there's even a prediction that it would, annual prediction that it will reach about 31.85%, which is almost 32. And some advisors are saying liquidity of the dollars. how do you look at that?
Price of petroleum in this country is determined by market forces. Inflation will rise ad infinitum. It will never, ever come down. It will defy the law of gravity that what goes up comes down. This one will never come down. As long as there is no energy security in this country. And that was why the decision to move subsidy from petrol was a faulty one, was a wrong one, was in fact a grave mistake and should be reversed. The solution to this problem is to reverse the removal of subsidy. Whether they like it or not, whether Nigerians agree or not, until subsidy on petrol is reversed, until subsidy is imposed on diesel, until subsidy is imposed on aviation fuel, this problem will persist. Secondly, I don't know of any country that is serious-minded, any country from China to America to UK, that floats its national currency. None. I don't know where that idea came from, that somebody should float the national currency. And we have floated it and it is flowing towards Zimbabwe as we speak. And for an import-dependent country, high cost of forex, high cost of energy is equal to inflation, both food and headline inflation. So it was our own handiwork that led us to this point. So to reverse it, we need to go back, we need to impose fuel subsidy. I'm unapologetic about this position. And on the issue of the currency, what is driving the Naira down mostly? Is it not corruption? When you now denominate corruption in dollars, and every month, once people receive FAC allocation, they besiege the parallel market to convert it to our currency. What do you expect? So if you don't tackle corruption comprehensively, none of these problems can be solved.
Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, Consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest video.